Hey guys, welcome back to Thomann Bedroom Producers. Now, technology is a beautiful thing in a lot of ways because I think it allows people who don't have any formal training in music or music theory to express themselves, which I love, because the more creativity we get out in the world, the better. And even if you do have that formal training, there's lots of different ways that you can change up your workflow to change up the result that you get and create all kinds of interesting styles of music that maybe you normally wouldn't. So today we're gonna go over my favorite tool to accomplish just that, not requiring any prior knowledge of any music theory or being able to play the keys at all. And we're also gonna go over a couple of bonus tips as some alternatives to that tool. So let's get into it. So this is the plugin that I'm excited to share with you guys, and it's EZKeys. Basically, the way that this works is you can think of this arrangement window as kind of a reflection of what's happening in your DAW. So if I move anywhere in my DAW, it'll change where we are in the actual arrangement window within EZKeys. Now, the great part about this plugin is that it allows you to start with a blank slate and then kind of give you suggestions to help you along the way. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just start with a blank slate here, and we're gonna make a song section here. So if we right click and just set the song type to be chorus, for example, because I like to start with the hooks usually when I'm starting from scratch. Now here's where it gets really cool. We can just drag some blocks onto the chords section here. So there's song parts, chords, and MIDI. And we can start creating a little chord progression, okay? And we can be as basic or as complicated as we want. So it starts us off in the key of C major, which is totally fine for what we need. Now, if I click on one of these blocks, I can change what type of chord we're starting with. And you can preview the chord just by clicking anywhere inside of this circle or with these chord extensions, right? So here's a C7, C add 9, and you can just feel it out and find one that you like starting with, right? So if we started with this C add 9, right? We move on to the next chord and we can change that to something else. So let's do, okay, so what if we went from C add 9 to a C augmented here? Now here's where it gets really cool is you can have it suggest chords for you to go to next, given whatever genre you're working in, okay? So if we just select this little section here and we click suggest chords, it'll bring up what we've got already, okay? So we've got a C add 9. We can preview it there. And we've also got the C augmented. And here's some suggestions for what we could do next. So we could go back to the first chord, or we could go, instead of using the suggestions as well, which is an easy way to do it, we could also just click this chord block and we could go to edit chord and we could just pick a new one, okay? So one thing that I talk about a lot is creating variations to make sure that your ear doesn't get bored with whatever you're making. And it's really easy to do that in EZKeys because you can just copy this section over by holding Alt and it'll create a copy of what we've got. And then I'm gonna just select this section and then have it suggest some alternative chords for us here. So instead of going back to the C add 9, we could go to a regular C and then maybe keep this chord. And then where else could we go after that? An A minor 7 instead to, how about, so on this variation, I kind of want to add one more chord change at the very end. So what I'm going to do is just grab the scissors here. We're just going to slice this up and create a new chord here. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but what you can actually do is double click the MIDI notes here and it'll take you right into a piano roll, exactly like you'd see it in your DAW. And you can make some individual edits to the chords here. Maybe we add something a little spicier. I'm taking just this note from earlier. That's pretty cool. And it identifies that as a G7 flat 9. Okay. We were just moving notes around. That's all we were doing. All right, so we've got our main chords, we've got a little variation here. Now, what we wanna do is, it's sounding a little bit too MIDI-like, right? So we wanna humanize a little bit. You can totally use this humanize button here. If you select all the notes and you click humanize, it'll shorten some of the notes and make everything that a little bit less aligned. and just change some of the relationships between the notes in terms of velocity and note length and everything. Okay, now here's where it gets really crazy, because we can actually take that humanization a step further by basically selecting all of our MIDI, and we're gonna go to replace MIDI, which sounds scary, but it's not, okay? All we're gonna do is apply certain rhythms and certain kind of arpeggiated chords to give our chord progression a little more flavor, okay? So let's stick with our gospel style here. We're gonna choose something that seems like it fits, okay? So we've got a family here that is roughly 70 BPM, and we're at 75 right now, so that might be a good place for us to start. What we're gonna do is select this. And we can also completely change the feel of it too. So we could do something a little bit more staccato, right? We don't have to just stick with this piano sound. Within EZKeys, you can actually add like sort of a pad sound on top of it if you want to. So like if we did something like this. But what I really like to do is to route the MIDI from within EZKeys straight into a synth of my choice. So I've got Analog Lab set up here, and if you're in Ableton, the easiest way to do this is to just go to the drop down where it says all ends, and then just select EZKeys, because that's going to be where we're receiving our MIDI input from. And then under the second drop down, just select EZKeys 2 and set the input to in. And then when we press play here, another really cool aspect that you can do with EZKeys is you can change the play style. So you could make it quieter, or you can make it louder. You can change the number of notes within it. So or maybe if we're in the hook, we could do something like this. Or even the note length here. Now let's say that we're happy with the way that it's sounding right now. We don't have to stay within this workflow. We can just drag the MIDI clip straight out of EZKeys and right into our synth if we want to. And then once we change the input monitoring to be auto, it's going to notice that there's some MIDI input information within the arrangement window here for us to play with. And now we can just continue with our normal workflow as usual. Now, I also want to give you guys a couple of tips as an alternative to EZKeys, and you can actually do a lot within the DAW itself. So if you work in Ableton, for example, you can use what's called the Chord MIDI device, and that will basically shift the notes from whatever key you pressed up or down, however many semitones you want. So if we go to MIDI effects and we go to major 7 chord here and use that as a preset now, obviously that doesn't sound very good because it's not limited to a particular scale here. So what we want to do is go to MIDI effects, and then we're going to go to our scale here, and let's go to just select major here. And now when we press keys here, it's going to filter out all of the notes that aren't working. So you can get lots of good progressions just like this. And you can even start combining multiple keys together to get different relationships within this particular scale, right? So you could go a little bit more jazzy because there's more interesting relationships between all the notes. And then all you have to do from that point is just record whatever it is that you want to record, right? So and then all I'm going to do is open up a new MIDI track and set the input to be what we just created. And we're going to record the output of what we are getting from the chord and the scale. And that's just a really simple way to get started without having to, be too cerebral about music. Because at the end of the day, I think it's just It's about having fun, right? And making cool stuff. Another thing you can do too, if you don't know how to play any keys, is you could even take something like this chord progression here. Let's say we just committed our chord progression here to audio. We could press Command T to create a new audio track and drag our frozen audio there, and then press Command Shift T to create a new MIDI track, and that will automatically create a sampler for us. And then if we go to slice mode, and we just reduce the sensitivity to our chords here, and we go to gate mode, we could just create something out of this little chord progression we did, right? And you could also even do the house thing too, where you take like one single chord here. So even if you don't use EZKeys specifically, there's lots of different interesting ways that you can get some cool sounds and some things that you normally wouldn't think to do. Like I said, even if you do have that skill set. So I'd love to hear from you guys down below if you like to work this way, or if you like to be a little bit more conscious about how you incorporate theory into what you do or your key skills when you're making music. Because as long as you like being creative, I think there's room out there for everybody and all kinds of different music, regardless of your musical background. All right, so happy music making. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.